Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Apollo Justice, Ace Attorney. Last time we found out, like the day before, that we're going to be trying out, trying out a new justice system. A juror system, well, jurist, as known in-game, and, the person we're defending, her father died, he was an artist. And it just so happened that his artwork contains sketches of every murder that has happened in the game. It's messed up, yo. Anyway, let's start the trial. Good morning. So, you're Vera, right? I'm Trucy. Trucy Wright. That's right with a W, but not right, right? That only works in text. We're on your side. You can tell us anything, please. Good morning. She speaks. Not bad, not bad. But I think you'll do better with a little smile, you know? You're so pretty. You need to sell yourself, you know? Trucy, let's take it easy for starters. Thank you for taking my case. Okay, well, that's a start, I guess. Here she goes with the nail polish again. That's great, really. It's so cultured. Want to try? Oh, really? Girls. The victim, Drew Misham, was a forger, and a stolen painting was found in his studio. A life of crime, really. And maybe one that led to his death. Are we going to be in a new courtroom, or... No, it's pretty much more of the same. Well, we will now begin the trial of Vera Misham. Is the judge okay? His voice is all raspy and he's looking around all nervous like. The repercussions of today's trial will most likely be felt for a long time. It may indeed alter our legal system forever. Today is a test of the jurist system and the first step toward a new order in our courts. Daddy's secret mission. The jurists will function like a jury. It is hoped their inclusion will help the courts do better, reflect the people's will. Why are there any jurists in the courtroom? 3 closed-circuit cameras watch this courtroom at all times. The jurists have access to everything that transpires. Jurists, Judge Vel and Judge Cool. Now see here, Prosecutor Gavin. I was going to say that. My apologies here, Judge. Jurists, today, judge today's trial coolly, if you would be so kind. The jurists are unbound by the letter of the law. They don't affect the trial with evidence, but by their feelings. We're about to find out just what effect they're going to have. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. The details of the case, if you would. Also, apologies if you might hear excess noise in the background. It is very hot in this room, and I opened up a window because my mom will not turn on the air, so, yeah. You might hear wind, or my computer's fan working overtime. Either or. The victim is the painter Drew Misham. He was killed in his own studio. His coffee was poisoned. By whom, you ask? By none other than the defendant, Vera Misham. There wasn't any poison in the coffee. Achtung! Someone has been doing their homework. Indeed, poison was not present in the coffee, but on the mug itself. The mug? Residue was found on the rim, I see. The autopsy report describes the manner of our victim's death. Court accepts this as evidence. Excuse me, I wish to read that. According to this report, I'll be the judge of that, Judge. Death by quinine poisoning, estimated time of death 9 to 9:30. Alright. The victim's death was caused by ultraquinine poisoning, a chemical compound that does not occur naturally. Lethal dosage is a mere 0.002 milligrams. A touch of ultraquinine in the body is the touch of the Reaper's scythe. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. You may present your witness. I have for you today a simple man for a simple case. A man who witnessed the murder in its entirety. That journalist, no doubt. The witness will state his name and occupation. Does he have a cold or something? Ah, right. Well, for starters, my name's Spark Brushel. My job is a lone observer of the world. In other words, a freelance journalist. Right? Ahem, if you don't mind, I'd like to state something here for the record. Yes, Mr. Brushel? I dislike conclusions, specifically the jumping to aspect of conclusions. Preconceptions make Park Sandbox of endless desert waste. End quote. But you are a journalist. You said so yourself yesterday. Well, that's true, yes. But you must understand, I stand before you today a man with a dream. I'm offering you my testimony in exchange for exclusive rights to the story. Scoop turns Mr. Brushel into that Mr. Brushel. End quote. Let's hear your testimony then, shall we? A simple case, eh, Gavin? For me, the jury is still out. I see what you did there. And double pun. They're literally out of the courtroom, too. Ha! Journalist story. I visited the studio around 9 that night to do the interview. The first outsider to enter the atelier. Journalistic history made. End quote. His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. And you know what happened next? Star falls. End quote. No one else entered the room besides her the whole time. It does sound like a simple case. Unless you're the one who poisoned him. What are you saying, Judge? Need I remind you, the cameras are rolling today. I felt the need to be a bit dramatic. Oh my god. You didn't do it, did you? Me do anything like that? Come on. That's like newsmaker making the news, end quote. Or even contemporary witch hunt, end quote. I know, all accusations rock courtroom, end quote. Rock, indeed. Prosecutor Gavin sure look like blah blah blah. Sure looks like he's having fun. I'm so happy for him. Very well, Mr. Justice, your cross-examination, please. God, I hate him so much. Alright, he visited the studio. First outsider to enter the atelier, journalist history made, end quote. His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. You know what happened next? Star falls, end quote. No one else entered the room besides her the whole time. Wait a minute. Press. What's this about a star falling? Star falls, huh? It's like an old telegram. Send money. Over. Zowie! You don't know? It's like a journalism code word. Important personage pass away. A star falls. Get it? But there's no gravity in space, is there? I wouldn't think stars could fall, really. Does this matter? Oh boy, this is good stuff, good stuff. How about star breaks? Nah, lacks punch. I forgot that having the window open means that motorcycle a-hole at midnight can still be heard, unfortunately. I know, star dies. Nah, lacks imagination. Of course, you could go with Drew dies, straight to the point. I like it. I think we need to hear about something a little more substantial. The moment of death. About when Mr. Mission passed away. Oh boy, what a scene that was. He put his coffee mug down with a crash, right? Yes, and then the cold finger of death touches his spine. Life's flame sputters and fails, rather. So cold was that touch, he could do naught but tremble uncontrollably. Actually, life's flame is a little tired. Life's river froze over. Yes, that's a go. I think he's starting his article already. Could you describe that a little more simply? Well, as you can imagine, I was pretty surprised. He hit the floor, as they say. Artist's seizure is final performance. End quote. Ultraquinine paralyzes the central nervous system. The body arches back like a bow. The limbs tremble, the throat burns. But that's quite enough of that. Some of us want to be able to sleep tonight. Oh yeah? Well, I want details. Lots of juicy details. For that, you can listen to our last year's hit single, Ultraquinine, My Love, by the Governors, available at all major music outlets. The point here is that the victim died of ultraquinine poisoning. Well, Mr. Justice, how'd you find that testimony? But he said it was immediate. It's a slow-acting poison. Well, as an account of the moment of the victim's death, I'd say it's very important. Please add it to the testimony. Very well, the court requests that the witness add this account to his testimony. The spasm, so it's definitely death by poison. You say it was definitely death by poison. How can you be so sure? Hey look, I'm a journalist. I've seen a lot of things. And I've had more than my share of experiences with so-called poisonings. Man eats fishy fish, goes bye-bye. End quote. Food poisoning doesn't count. Should I get him to talk about something else? Because I don't have anything that talks about... But he doesn't specifically say. I thought we would get more into the time frame. Maybe. Because it said it's slow acting. So he's not going to see the effects immediately. I'll present here, and then if not, I'll get him to talk about the coffees. Yep, I'm gonna have to get him to talk about the coffees. Alright, well... Apollo, you gotta... You gotta use your words more, man. My dude. Okay, those spasms. Yeah, whatever. So his coffee won't be important. Let's talk about the Star's coffee. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee? Of course. He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger. End quote. I live in a man see dog eat dog and writes about it world. Yet. I guess I can't say I saw him drink it, really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks. End quote. That poison is quite virulent, I hear. My stomach did a so-called somersault, since I'd gulped down that coffee without so much as a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there. Some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture a guess for the record? Does this guy have a pause button? Well, Mr. Justice, to find that testimony valuable? He didn't see him drink it. But there is a lip mark on there, so we know it was drunk. Coffee Mr. Misham drank. It has to be important somehow. Nah. Okay. Talk about your coffee then. So you drank the coffee that Vera served you too? Of course. When someone serves you coffee, you drink it. That's what my old boss always used to say. Never did get what he meant by it, though. But you're still alive, which is to say you didn't die. Of course not. No point falling before you're a star. End quote. That's not exactly what I was getting at. What were you getting at then? You know the poison was on the rim, not in the coffee. Oh yes, yes! There were 2 cups on the tray she brought. And one of the cups had Drew's signature painted on the side. No chance to guess would take that one by mistake, I guess. Mr. Justice, was that testimony? I'm at a loss. Okay. Oh, so we get that line of thought for this, for his coffee. Judge, I dispute this play. Judge, I want my points, please. The victim drank his coffee, then immediately fell over. Oh, yes, you can go to the press with that one. Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony. Very well, the witness will add this to his testimony. Vital, right. At one sip, if that, the next moment, he was on the floor. It's slow acting, my dude. I was right the first time, just, didn't have the right thing. You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used. Ultraquinine. Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. Lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, will be reduced to a quivering pile. Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information. An omission? Ultraquinine is as virulent as he says. But death doesn't come upon ingestion. Not immediately. That's because ultraquinine is slow acting. Slow acting? What? According to one forensic scientist, it's one of the most virulent poisons, but is absorbed into the body astonishingly slow. It takes at least 15 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe. Order! What's the meaning of this? If what the defense says is correct, why, that contradicts the entire testimony we've just heard. Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say? On the record? Slow acting? SLOWACT. It was virulent, alright. Even then, it had already begun digging its claws into the journalist. He's working on his scoop. It's Brushel, yeah? Herr Brushel, let's take a trip back down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over. This is vital. You know what I think? I think that was not so subliminal suggestion. Yeah. Or end quote, rather. I kind of skipped through that, but he is right. Your Honor, objection. Leading the witness. I admit, it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say auf Wiedersehen to my simple case, and you would be forced to say farewell to your article. Come again? You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent, and you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye. Scoop! Ew. Scoop. Look, wait, just wait a second. Just 1 second. We're waiting, out with it. I think I just recalled a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. A story of survival, end quote. Attorney utterly confused, end quote. Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I heard of poison that takes its sweet time, see? But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently. Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened? You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction, end quote, you might say. Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about, end quote, I might say. I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See? Thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee. Do you now? Order! 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 As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony. That Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank. Of course I'm standing by my testimony. And my dream of exclusive rights to this story. Wait, just got sidetracked with something. What is going on? Oh my god, it's a possum outside. Holy shit. Alright, suppose it was too much to hope for. What was? Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case. Not him. Him? Phoenix Wright. Who else? Achtung, Herr Brushel reports for us if you would. But is it that you noticed? I don't trust him. This court is a critical trial of the jurist system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed. You better keep it 100, my dude. You better keep it 10 times 10, my son. Okay. When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note? What? A suicide note? Yes, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide? Poor Mr. Misham. My dude, like, quadratic equations ain't even that hard. But that means Vera's innocent. Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Well, it wasn't necessarily an interview. It was a press conference. I think that was in the 80s, or it might have been the 70s. I think he was either a congressman or a governor. I don't remember the name of the guy or what his title was. I just know that he was under investigation by the feds for, like, just a bunch of stuff, like corruption and just a whole bunch of money crimes, and he was about to go under. Like, they had irrefutable evidence, but he was still maintaining his innocence. And like, he did a press conference stating that he was, like, stepping down from office. And it was like a super long conference. Like, some reporters were leaving because of how long it was without him saying much, just still, like, proclaiming his innocence. And then, like, near the tail end, he started handing out, like, envelopes to his aides nearby, and then pulled out one more envelope that had a gun, and he pulled it out, and, like, that's when people kind of knew what was going on. And yeah, like, he shot himself on live TV. And yeah, he never had officially stepped down, and I think the reasoning for that was, like, if like, he died in office, that, like, some of the benefits he had and stuff would still go on to his family, as opposed to if he left office and was tried for criminal charges, which would have bankrupted the family. And it was, I mean, but either way, like, the fact that he did it on live TV is just all kinds of fucked up. Like, people saw that live, and it's, ugh. It's messed up. It's messed up, but yeah, it can happen, Apollo. Oh, very well. You may begin your cross-examination. What Bruschel noticed. Alright, when I arrived at the studio, Mr. Mission was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. That letter was dated 7 years ago. So he put the letter away when he saw you. Early reporter gets worm, end quote. That's my secret. I'm not sure I follow. It's the night of the interview. I arrived 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in. Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, is that unlawful entry, really? Mr. Misham sure seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one. It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice? I wonder. It does have the ring of something important. Sure, why not? Add it to the testimony. The defense finds this testimony vital, Your Honor, especially since it wasn't a red envelope. My dude, it was a yellow envelope. It was red. Yeah. And it was from 7 years ago. Very well, please add it to the testimony then. Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. It was a yellow envelope. I heard it was left at the crime scene. We got him. I mean, it's a technicality, but I mean, we still got him. As it just so happens, there was a single letter in the desk drawer at the scene. In a red envelope. What was that animation? Prosecutor Gavin. Yes. It was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime. Unfortunately, no. But, Herr Forehead, it's easy to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already. 7 years ago. Well, Mr. Bruschel, I can explain that. Drew, right? He wanted to get that letter in the envelope. Pronto. Get it out of sight of my beady eyes, right? So he grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away. And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump? Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim? That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. No. That's impossible, because the letter was addressed to him. Ah, I like your expression, so full of confidence. Let me just read that. Mr. Drew Mission? Yep. Okay. It's simple, really. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope with the assistance of a forensic scientist. But know that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham. Oh! Why would he address a letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself. I've been scooped! Order! 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 Mr. Bruschel, can you explain this to the court? Oh my, how could I have forgotten? Suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots. End quote. I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Bruschel. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching in his desk drawer for something. His desk drawer. Yes, a stamp. A so-called postage stamp. End quote. A stamp? Whatever for? Well, to mail his letter. What else? And then, why yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope, and he put it in that box. Well, apparently this yellow letter has nothing to do with the case. Oh, how I wish it did. Just think if it were a suicide note. What a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter. False. End quote. Ahem. As I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said. Yes, Your Honor. It makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope. I deposit the hunted and designated account. Sign the papers, send the enclosed envelope, and then closed stamp. $100,000 is quite a good deal of money. So this was from 7 years ago, yeah? So, am I finished? Here, I mean, am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start writing. He's looking a little suspicious. I hate to state what should be pretty obvious to anyone, but when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face. Come on! Attorney has active imagination, little else. End quote. Even I noticed something, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about. Judge has active imagination. End quote. Please continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story. Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here. Usually. I hate him so much. What is he doing with his tongue and mouth? Ugh. Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. The reporter leveraged his story, gets his interview. End quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably has something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare. What? Okay. So you threatened to go to press with this story. That's how you got your interview. Blackmail? Well, yes. I mean, no. It wasn't exactly black. I mean, I'm not... Something wrong, Mr. Brushel? Look. This is my story. My tidbit. Journalist info is livelihood. End quote. I see. While you have me chatting away in here, what's going on out there? What if some Wally Wordsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? He could be going to press while I'm going to waste. The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace. A certain case 7 years ago. Wait, 7 years ago? What? Leverage's story gets his interview, end quote. Concerning a certain case from 7 years ago. The right envelope probably has something to do with it. So you will, but Drew's telling us without compare. Exactly what sort of story was this? Oh, a little one, like I said. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing in between. End quote. I might have suggested I had a lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or anything, honest. So a suggestion was enough to get an interview. Mr. Mission must have really wanted to keep it under wraps. I'm about to examine this dude. Ugh, I hate seeing his face so close. I couldn't notice anything, so I'll see if pressing will get me closer. The victim Drew Misham had an aversion to reporters. Boy, I guess maybe my considerable charms did much for him. Until I finally got my thumbs up, that is. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us. A certain case 7 years ago. Tell us, what case? Let me state one thing, Mr. Attorney, and you can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case. Why not? It's about journalistic pride and staunchness and credibility and connections. Journalist reveals sources only over his dead body. End quote. So what'll it be? Gonna strangle me? Dead men don't tell tales, Mr. Attorney. He sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good. On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related? Oh, I was just saying it's possible. Call it reporter's intuition, end quote. Hey, I say a lot of things. You gonna pick all of them apart? Be my guest. All of them? No, just the incredibly suspicious ones. I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham? Did he read the envelope? Still nothing. Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent? Huh? Hoo-wee boy, I mean, hey, he's a star, man, a star. The flow of his brush is like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artists' paints light up studio like sun, end quote. This guy is full of wacky gestures. But that one just now was wackier than usual. Looks kind of nervous to me, Apollo. Definitely. I'm sensing something different than before here. Maybe it's time to bring out you-know-what. Testimony left a bad taste in my mouth. It all makes sense. Nothing jumps out as ridiculous. I wonder what this story he's talking about is. Must have been good to get an interview with a famous recluse like that. Something powerful enough to drag Drew Misham out of hiding. I wonder. Oh! Yeah, maybe he knew that he was a forger. That would be the one thing that would get him to talk. And that's the only... I mean, this... he's doing a wacky gesture on. But so is this. What the What the fuck? Is he bleeding? I don't... That was so minor. But at least I was right on, like, oh, it's going to be on one of the ones where his pose was really weird. It was like I was looking at everything, like his eyebrows, his shoulders, his elbow on the arm that you could see. So, yeah, okay. Sweat much, Mr. Brushel? Yeah, well, a man can't help his glands, you know? It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. Ah! You're hiding something about his talent. What? That's ridiculous. Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. Just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. I guess it would be that. I can't help but wonder, what the court's supposed to conclude from this evidence? Other than you've made a horrible mistake? Amber's bitch forgets to cross first, end quote. Oh my god. I mean, it had the thing under it. The sketch. Fine. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. There are two problems with this painting. The first is it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. Ow! That is all, Your Honor. Everyone, please, everyone! Can we keep this private, please? This is my story, my scoop! Forgery. That's a serious crime. Drew Misham is known as an artist these days, but there are rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back. Another art? Meaning forgery? Drew Misham was talented, alright? Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover. Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about... Exactly! I'm talking about forging evidence. The rumor started circulating 7 years ago. Oh, shit. So 7 years ago? So are we to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for... Exactly. Forged evidence nets tidy profit. End quote. Order! 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 Why, it's like our victim was living a double life. Aha, this is my chance. So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. Objection! This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we concluded our investigation. Or conducted, rather. But how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. But there is no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remains simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course. Hey! The only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews. Mr. Brushel, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen. What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism so solid you could stand an elephant on it. End quote. In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, the trial is over. Apollo, what's he talking about? The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there's no other suspects, then the killer had to be Vera, that's what. This next testimony is our last chance. Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please. And don't lie, boy. The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during that interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. But we found poison on something else. He said nothing else touched the lips, but a stamp did. A nice testimony, clear, succinct, and without room for doubt. Aw, shucks. You really think so? I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your final cross-examination. Right. I still have one trump card left to play. And I won't let this trial end until I use it. Okay, the only other person in the studio tonight was the defendant. Vera poured the coffee. And the thing that touched his lips and everything was that mug. You're sure about that? Well, to be really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time. One of those candies might have been poison. Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee? Well, Mr. Justice, you have some proof. "2 inches wide, bears traces." Looks like you have to take this back part off first to put a photo inside. It'd be a really small photo to fit in there. Sure, that pale bluish stain. Why would there be a poison in a place like this? Well, there's one obvious reason. Whoever put poison in the coffee rubbed a bit on here, too. It's not very obvious, Trucy. Possibility is there. I can feel it, just maybe not prove it. Not yet. Impossibility isn't going to cut it. Not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than that coffee. Not yet. It can't be proven. I do believe our little forehead is growing up. Pity. We like the rash, youthful forehead best. Another hole in this case that needs plugging before I can prove anything. But first things first. I better uncover a weak spot before I try to strike again. Yeah. But you said yourself he mailed... Not one thing. You're sure? Yep, sure can be. Well, with one exception. One exception? What? Journalist Spark Brushel does interview. Leave studio. End quote. I hate him. Come on. It's a joke, get it? Not funny, I know, but still. Did something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Or have I heard something like that before? Now that we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to the testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night? Just one thing. I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene. By which you mean... something other than our witness? Of course. Because he said he saw a yellow envelope, but we found a red one. You're not going to confuse yellow and red. Don't tell me, Vera Misham. Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional. Then let's see what you've got for us, Mr. Justice. Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows it could have been taken from the scene. Because he said himself that he put the letter in the letterbox. This is the only link between that studio and the outside world. A letterbox? What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, I said that, and yeah, it was true. Furthermore, you went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox. Huh. But that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night the yellow envelope disappeared. Yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing. Huh? He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappeared? Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. It seems very important to me. Very well then, the witness will add this to his testimony. You got it! I still think this fails to change anything here, Forehead. I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for. So it had to have been the stamp. Like that episode of Seinfeld. The letter was put in the post from the studio, but I hardly think that matters. Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio. And you were hiding that fact from us. Yes? Well, actually, I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio. But, Herr Forehead, is there a much more serious question before us? Right. How Mr. Misham was poisoned, I know. But Mr. Brushel's testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. And what he's told us means something entirely different now. I'm starting to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter. You're sure about that? What's gonna be... Oh, is this gonna be the exact same? Mission ingested that poison via a route other than coffee. Not yet. Your little forehead is growing up. Pity, we like the rash. Why can't I skip this? This is the exact same. Wait a second, we already know a letter might have left the studio that night. Couldn't that have opened another path for poisoning? Situation's already changed. Just need to take advantage of it. Like, I have a feeling I know where this is going. I just want to be careful. Let's say we can prove it. Proof is possible. Here goes nothing. You do understand what we need, yeah? Proof, Hair Forehead, not possibilities. Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof. What did you say? I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter. I did. Which was picked up by the mailman, I assume. Of course. Which means the mailman is walking at 9 p.m. That envelope had a stamp on it. A stamp? Ah! As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp. Although most stamps I've used are just like, you know, they have an adhesive on them, like a sticker. You just peel them off the paper and stick them on the envelope. I used licking stamps in the past, but I could never really get them to stick. We end up just putting like tape over them, but yeah. No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age. Well, he never left his house in this day and age. And if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead, after all. Okay, so he licked the stamp. But wait, how does that explain the ultraquinine on the rim of the coffee mug? If he licked the back of a poisoned stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth? Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around. What? The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself. Order! 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 But that doesn't... Does it? Recall, if you would, ultraquinine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope. But his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. You have something to add, Mr. Brushel? Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that's the thing, see, after he put his letter in the envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp, end quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one. Maybe he'd just run out. Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. Never no stamps, not a single one. It does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison? Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poisoned possible. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place. Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of this poisoned stamp? Not necessarily a stamp, but just a poison existing elsewhere. Here we go, buddy. Well, that certainly is a cute little frame. And by little, I mean really little. It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself. I noticed that too during my inspection. So what? Ah, apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important. Missing something? Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Ultraquinine residue. What? Why wasn't I told about this? The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most. You aren't sane. Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps? Order! 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 The poison stamp was in this frame. Impossible. Prosecutor Gavin. Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck. You know, can I say something? I had a thought, see? What, Mr. Brushel? And please stop jittering around like that. The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends, makes enemies too, end quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him.
Objection!
Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous fights of fancy to the Gaviner's song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one. Oh, I disagree. Come again? Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail. The mail? Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon. Ridiculous. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon. Might not have evidence, per se, but things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed. Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. With the enclosed stamp. But that was 7 years ago, so he was just holding on to it? Isn't this the envelope? The one from 7 years ago? Think about the text of the letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor. Ah! In other words, if I have this straight, stamp, poison, on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp, end quote. Now, what if he had done exactly as the letter asked? He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox. 15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. But the clock started ticking. When the time came, he drew his last breath. And the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene. Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system. Such a splendid imagination you have, Herr Forehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, This poison stamp was inside this envelope from 7 years ago, yeah? Is that what you'd have us believe, really? Well, it's a little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility. Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope? A stamp that then became the murder weapon. How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence? Well, it was 7 years ago. You won't even know who sent that letter. And your answer is silence. I see. Very well. I move to. It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein, Clavier. Who? What? Emma? Wait, what? What happened there? What? Huh? What? Oh. Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression. Did I sound like him? Don't quit your day job. Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fraulein Detective? Something had to come dig you all out of the mess you're making of this case. Mess? You know, none of this would happen if you just trusted in science a little more. You can find out if that stamp was in that envelope. Easy! Care to explain yourself, Fraulein Detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right! The poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court. Oh, we got something there, buddy. Well, would you look at that? No mistaking it. That's ultraquinine residue. I don't believe it. A murder weapon from the past. Now, 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last. Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago? Well, there's one possibility. Even Mr. Misham figured it out. Figured what out? He realized that the person who sent that letter wanted him dead. So he sent his reply with a different stamp. And put his decisive evidence in a frame? Look, you're still here? Can I make a statement here on the record? I, Spark Razortooth Brushel, claim the scoop is mine. Drew Misham killed in cold blood. By a sender of 7-year-old letter, end quote. No, maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7 years delay, end quote. Order! 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 I see no room for further argument here. Though I admit, this is all coming as quite a shock. To think that the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his ticket straight to afterlife, end quote. Uh-oh. I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge. I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant. Apollo? I think we just won. Very well, the court finds the defendant. Is this the bright future of our legal system? Prosecutor Gavin? A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago? Tickets for Gaviner's shows are invalid after 2 weeks. But it doesn't make sense any other way. It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in Herr Forehead's claim. A contradiction? A poison stamp was placed in this envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Drew Misham have done what he did? Emma explained that. He must have realized it was poisoned. No, because then why would he then go around and, do it now? Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed a trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but this begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot? He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years and forgot? You expect us to believe he sprang the trap on himself? While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years. Apollo? I don't think we're winning anymore. I'm glad to see we're all back on the real world now. Welcome back to reality. Look, Thisby Rabbity. We've been waiting for you. Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope? The poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed. What about the ultracanine residue, huh? Oh, I agree, that does seem to be ultracanine residue. But, Hair Forehead, it's certainly no stamp. Yeah, but even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all. I believe we've come to a conclusion. Again. Apollo! Were we wrong the whole time? I can't believe it. The poison traces match up. It can't be coincidence. I'd like to bring some closure to this issue sometime this year. Mr. Justice? Yes, Your Honor. Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison ultracanine on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene. On this tiny picture frame, the defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope. An envelope that left the scene of the crime with the poison stamp on it. Yes, but even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, and Drew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp. I'm afraid you're right, which means there is a fatal flaw in the defense's case. It's not even our case, it's just what Emma was, guessing. I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of ultracanine, the envelope, the frame, and Drew Misham's mysterious death. They're all connected somehow. Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us? The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake. Ah, a fake clue? Fascinating. And if we find this fake, your vile fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah? The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than... Let's try submitting the frame? This frame is the fake clue? Without a doubt, Your Honor. Objection! Wasn't it you who presented the evidence to the court? Oh. Hold on a second, Apollo. The poison on the envelope, that frame, and the coffee mug, they're all connected somehow. Oh, right. Hear it already. It looks like the fake was you, Hair Forehead. We can't flog ourselves later, Apollo. Now's the time for thinking. Alright, well then, the only, constant among all of those was Drew Misham. The victim was a fake clue? I'm afraid I don't understand. It's also not something we submitted ourselves or can cross-check. Because the poison on the frame matches the poison found in the envelope. I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, and a mug linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself. Objection! Congratulations, you've completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. It makes a good story, I'll give you that. The fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries. Ah. I know that face. That's the I just had an idea face. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake? Come again? 7 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why? That's what I want to know. Because the forger who was killed was a fake. Here we are again. The victim was a fake. One forger smelled the trap, one forger fell into the trap. And that's two forgers, and one of them was a fake. So are you telling us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You better not be claiming there was some kind of switcheroo. I'm afraid you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who the real Drew Misham was. Drew Misham wasn't the real forger. There's only one other person it could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Misham was himself a forgery. Real forger was... So, the only other thing could be he was willingly doing it to protect his daughter. There can only be one explanation, really. Real identity of the forger known as Drew Misham is none other than his only daughter, Vera Misham. Order! 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 Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb, even for you. I kinda agree. I mean, Vera? A forger? Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Oh, because he had nothing to lose. And, like, the fact that the person just listed his name, not his daughter's, meant like, oh, they don't know, they have no proof, okay. Well, actually, it does make a certain kind of sense. One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. Drew Misham's and Vera Misham's. If we know that Drew Misham wasn't the forger, that leaves only one possibility, by process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well, fascinating. Vera Misham? You've been paying attention to the trial so far. Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger? Drew Misham? Was that an expression of emotion I saw on her face? She's staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face. I'm used to being stared at by Frauleins, believe me. Though they usually talk to me too. Tell us, were you the one who forged those works of art? Yes! So the forger Drew Misham was you? Yes, it was me! What? What? The court was in an uproar and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess. So she was the forger. So then they're going to try to say, like, she tried to kill her dad who knew, but he had no reason after, like, protecting her for 7 years. This is getting weird, but hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it next time. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time for more of this trial. And let's play Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. Goodbye.